You're listening to the Franchise Freedom Podcast with Giuseppe Grammatico.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, your franchise guide. And today we have a very special guest. Today we are speaking with Marcus Sheridan. And just a little bit about Marcus. Marcus is a highly sought after international keynote speaker known for his unique ability to excite, engage, and motivate audiences. Forbes named Marcus one of 20 speakers you don't want to miss. He has been dubbed the web marketing guru by the New York Times and featured in Inc., the Globe and Mail, Forbes, and many more. As the owner of Impact, Marcus has established one of the most successful digital sales and marketing agencies in the country. Within his speaking company, Marcus Sheridan International, Inc., he has given 70 global keynotes annually where he inspires audiences in the areas of sales, marketing, leadership, and communication. Mashable rated his book, They Ask You Answer, the #1 marketing book, and Forbes listed it as one of 11 marketing books every CMO should read. Marcus, welcome to the show.
Giuseppe, it's great to be here, my friend. We're going to have a great conversation, I have a feeling.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while. And we're going to dive into your book and, my aha moment for 2021 and 2022. But we'll get to that in a second. Can you give the listeners, so the listeners, we have a lot of aspiring business owners. We have a lot of current franchise owners that listen in. If you can give a little bit of your background, just reading your book and following you started out in the pool business. So how did you get into the marketing and writing books and things like that?
Yeah, so let me give you the 90-second 101 that takes you over the course across 20 years. Started a swimming pool company, just installing literally like above ground swimming pools at the time in 2001 out of university with two friends. And, we pushed to grow the company, and then the crash of 2008 happened, and I thought we were going to lose the business. And that was when I really started to read about the internet and, read all those fancy phrases like inbound marketing, content marketing, social media. What I heard in my simple pool guy mind was, Marcus, if you just obsess over your customers' questions and you're willing to address them honestly and transparently on your website through text and video, you might save your company. So I can recall one evening, I just sat there and brainstormed all the questions I had gotten over the years selling pools. At this point, we were pretty much a fiberglass pool builder.
Right.
And I started one by one every single night producing an article or a video that was addressing those questions. And we called that philosophy, They Ask You Answer. To make a long story short, River Pools went on to become the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. And then as I was doing that, I was writing about it, and my speaking career, my agency took off. At the same time, I still had the swimming pool company. And the pool company did so well that we started manufacturing pools. And so then we had dealers all over the country. That went so well that we franchised it. And so we were the first fiberglass swimming pool franchise in the U.S. And today I have River Pools all over the country, and it's growing quite fast. Mm-hmm. And it's controlled chaos is what we're trying to have with that growth. And
obviously, there's a lot more to it, but really being transparent. And one thing I want to note that Marcus talks about is just giving your pricing right on the website. How many when you do a search, and if the website is very vague and it's basically with just giving you a sample, and then if you want more info, really you have to book a call. What happens? And I know that when I was doing my own research, depending on the topic, I would just go to the second ranking in Google until I maybe got the information I wanted. So talk to us a little bit more about that. Talk to us about just how transparency, what does that do to the entire marketing experience?
Well, I think everything starts with how we have changed as buyers. And all the studies show that today we're somewhere between 70 to 80% through the buying journey before we reach out to a company. So we're very far advanced. And what's happening during that period of time, of course, is we're vetting companies and we're becoming subject matter experts ourselves on that product, that service, that brand, whatever the thing is that we're researching. And so we expect to be fed. And those that feed us we tend to trust them. Those that do not feed us during that research process, we don't trust them. We certainly don't give them our business. Now, what we have found is there's certain subjects that every buyer, every consumer tends to research before they engage a company. And in the book, we call these the big five. Mm-hmm. So these are the 5 most prolific subject matters that we research online. And the 5 are as follows: cost questions, problems questions or negatives, because when we're interested in buying something, we like to research what could go wrong with buying it. Number 3, we're obsessed with comparisons. 4, we're obsessed with reviews. And 5, we're obsessed with researching the best. The best, the most, the top. So that's what we do. Cost, problems, comparisons, reviews, best. Okay, those are what we call the big 5. And what's wild is, as consumers, we're obsessed with these 5 subjects. And as businesses, we tend to not want to talk about them. And so it creates this dichotomy of wants. And what we know for certain is that trust is the foremost need that every consumer has, and therefore every business needs to establish. And trust is going to be fundamental to our businesses 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. So that's never going to go away. And so if we're obsessed with trust, we have to say, okay, what's going to induce more of it? Well, addressing these questions, worries, fears, issues, concerns that our customers, our prospects have, and they tend to fall under those 5 subjects. And so cost is one of them. And companies love to justify, especially business-to-business organizations love to justify why they can't talk about cost and price on their website. We say things like, well, every job is different and it's a very customized solution. Then we say things like, I don't want my competitors to find out. And then we say things like, well, we tend to be more expensive. And if we're more expensive, we just might scare them away. What actually scares people away online is ignorance. When somebody doesn't show them the thing, doesn't tell them the thing. That's what turns us away from a company. That's what causes us to experience friction in the buying process. This whole idea of it depends or it's very customized, that's actually one of the easiest to explain. Explain what drives cost up, what drives cost down in the industry, why some companies are expensive, why some companies are cheap, and then you can explain roughly where you fall. But by doing this, you establish value in the marketplace. And the bottom line to cost and price is this. Number one, if they can't find it, they're not going to trust you. They're going to leave, just like you do. Putting on your website in 2022, call for quote, is the literal middle finger of the internet, and you're telling them to go away, and not a strong recommendation. And we've got all the data behind this. Now, the key, though, is you don't just slap up a number, that you really explain pricing and explain value proposition. That's the key behind this. So I'm not espousing that you slap up numbers on your website and think that's going to do the trick. And so make sure you do that. The bottom line is the customer wants it, right? If we don't give it to them, then they're going to find it from someone else. So the choice that we have is either we educate and earn the trust, or somebody else is the educator and wins the trust. I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in somebody educating my customers nearly as much as I am myself.
Very, very good point. And, you know, one takeaway was that I'm a lot more aware of when I do a search, why don't I click on a certain link, or why don't I contact a certain company. So I think that's just making me a lot more aware to my, you know, you always say kind of the answers are within, right? So look at your current actions, and it's as simple as that. And to your point, you nailed it. If it's very vague, as I mentioned, not just on cost, but on just about anything else, you're just going to go on to the next link.
I like what you described there, though, Giuseppe. What you're describing right now is a big deal. Yeah. And that is the companies that are best with online anything are the ones that know how to look in the mirror and notice the way they themselves have evolved as buyers and as consumers. Right. It's like, don't just do a search today and think blindly. Do it and ask yourself, why am I clicking on this right now? What are they doing that nobody else is doing? What is appealing about this? Why do I trust this company but not trust this other company? What's the subtlety or the nuance of the way they're communicating with me right now? It's very healthy.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I take notes now. I always have a notebook next to me and I take notes, and it's been very informative, which leads me to probably about a year ago when I started following you, the customer journey, because this has been an evolving thing where, as you mentioned, I think you had mentioned 70 to 80% of people are doing their own research, maybe on your website before ever contacting you. This was mind blowing to me. And I know this number has been increasing over the last decade. I think it was much less. You go back to 2010.
Well, the big shift was 25 years ago.
Okay.
25 years ago, 1997 is the year that the internet really started to take off.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, we were still visiting 3 automotive dealerships before we bought the car, right? I mean, that's where we were. And today, we're not even visiting an automotive dealership oftentimes.
Right.
I'm not saying you, if you're listening to this, I'm talking about the marketplace here. I'm speaking in generalities. And so information has given us the power, which is why it's really no longer a sales process. It's a buying process today, right? It's a big, big difference. And so the buyer is in charge. And the companies that have tried to hold on to the way they've always sold, they're the ones that are being left behind the most, right? I mean, the classic case, the most classic one is, and I, of course, talk about it in the book, but it's the automotive space, right? So you had used car retailers did it the same way for the longest time and didn't pay attention to the marketplace. They ruined all trust in the marketplace, right? And so somebody comes in like CarMax and says, okay, what are the fears that buyers have? Well, they don't want to have buyer's remorse. Let's give them a 3-day money-back guarantee at the time. And they said they hate haggling as a whole. Most people don't like to haggle. Right. And so they blew up that entire haggle-based pricing system within automotive, and they said no haggle pricing. And this was crazy at the time. They had this major inspection system that they did so that they could eliminate selling lemons as much as possible, all right, which helped increase more trust. And, what was interesting is at the time they were ridiculed by all the other automotive retailers. And of course, most of them have had a shift because of CarMax. But then, CarMax is going to do the same thing. They're going to get replaced by somebody, and they probably will buy a Carvana or somebody else because unless you're looking to replace your current methodology that aligns with the way the market is thinking, what they want, like in a perfect state. Problem, though, is most companies would sit there and say, well, there's no way we can give a money-back guarantee. Like, it's immediate. They just think there's no way we can do that. Not with a used car. Drive it off a lot, it's theirs. I mean, there's no way we could do that. And so there's no way we could do that. Ruins innovation in every single industry. And what's fascinating, it's the ones oftentimes that were the best innovators at first that eventually become the least innovative because they're still trying to hold on to what got them to where they are. But the cycles, they're getting so much faster, whereas you could dominate a space for 20 years before. Now it might only be 1 or 2 years before somebody is replacing you again, like a Carvana, and somebody will replace Carvana after that.
Right. So if you hear when it can't be done, you're onto something. So that's
that's where you start. That's where innovation starts.
I agree. So, we covered, okay, so how do you build trust? We talked about the buyer's journey. We talked about answering, right? Directly from your book. They ask, you answer. And that's how I started changing up my marketing. So how do you actually put it all together into a marketing strategy? So you talk about in your book about creating a team. Yeah. And you also have your company, Impact Marketing, where you can put together a team, whether that's social media and either cover the entire marketing strategy or parts of it, I believe. But talk to us a little bit about that, putting together a team. And then,
well, let me just say the root of they ask you answer is I have never seen a company become the most trusted, dominant voice in their space online by outsourcing their content to an agency.
Right.
I've not seen it. Now, maybe it's happened. I've seen agencies produce nice websites, nice campaigns, but not lead someone to becoming the most trusted voice in their space. What causes somebody to become the most trusted voice in their space? Well, what causes it is they produce more and better content through text, through video, through audio, etc., than anyone else in their space. That's how it works over and over again, right? And generally, you can do way more of that when you're producing it. In other words, when you're holding the paintbrush, you can create a better masterpiece. And so what my agency does is we help companies create an in-house team that is world-class with content production and other things as well. But that's one of the core things. And that's the essence behind They Ask You Answer. That's why we exploded with my swimming pool company, became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. That's what we've seen with so many other companies as well. And it starts with people that own certain things in your business. So let's say that you're a growing franchise. You should have an in-house content manager that is just focused on producing textual content,
Right.
Educational articles on your website. You should be producing at least three a week on your website. Now, this might not be the same for everybody. I understand. Like, let's say you're a restaurant. It's going to be a little bit different because They Ask You Answer plays a little bit differently in that food service space. But I say a little bit. There's still a lot of overlap. Okay, and so you should have a full-time content manager. You should also have a full-time videographer. Now, this is one thing that where when I think about the food service space, every great food franchise should have be all in on video and creating video stories with their food. Most don't. It's amazing to me how few companies have a full-time videographer. About 80-90% of the companies that we train have a full-time in-house videographer as well. Now, if you get a full-time in-house videographer and content writer, guess what? You're freaking unstoppable compared to the rest of the world. That's all you need. Two positions. Two positions will make you the 1% of your industry in almost every industry, regardless of size. And your ability to tell story, create story, get out of here.
Right.
It's just going to be unmatched.
Yeah, and I agree with that. So is the future more video, or are you still? I know you started with blogs, right? So do you really recommend going with video, or it is that combination for I guess an overall SEO strategy?
Well, it certainly is, and for search engine optimization right now, text is still better. But with that being said, I wrote a book on video. It's called The Visual Sale. It's awesome. If you really want to create a culture of in-house video within your company, that's what it's all about from a sales and marketing perspective. So it's called The Visual Sale. But what I'm seeing is that we most of the companies that embrace They Ask You Answer and that become great thought leaders, trusted leaders in their space, start with a content writer. They have that writer and they get good 3, 6, 8, 9, 10 months in. Now they got momentum. They're learning how to do this. Then they bring on the videographer. And what's really fascinating is a lot of companies that we work with end up bringing on a second writer or a second videographer after the first 12 to 18 months because the returns are so big.
That's interesting. So for people listening in that are solopreneurs, right? They don't have any, I'm a solopreneur. I work with everyone in my field. Maybe they have an assistant, but for the most part, they're doing it themselves. Where do you start? Because I think what happens is you get a little bit overwhelmed with the options.
You do. So, it is tough. It is tough as a solopreneur. But you know what? I don't feel sorry for anybody that's a solopreneur because you've got one of the best jobs in the world. Nobody tells you what to do, and you get up every day and you're motivated to put food on your own table. And I think it's a glorious position to be in. And you have no red tape. You're your own attorney. You're your own board. You're your own marketing team. And so you can be so creative. You can be a digital David in a land of Goliaths. And so that's what the solopreneurs and the small shops can do that the big shops can't do. They've got so much red tape. They're that Goliath that they're weighted down with armor and a heavy sword that they're really easy to outdo and outmaneuver online, especially because they can never be as quick. And so I would say if I'm that person, I'm going to find one specific marketing lane and I'm going to dominate that lane. So that lane could be written content. It could be video content. When I say a lane too, I'm talking about just one social media platform, not multiple. This is one of the biggest mistakes that we see any organization make. So whether you're an army of one or many, start with singularity of purpose. Don't try to be a jack of all social media trades. You'll end up being a master of none. So yes, be a master of one. And so I would say for the solopreneur, choose text or video first. Oftentimes video is easier for most people.
Right.
And you can produce video pretty fast. You can do it at scale.
Right.
All right. And so with that being said, I've got a huge brand on LinkedIn. That's just me. I don't have any help with that.
Right.
And I have
Oh, so
all
you're
my
writing
other,
every day. Yeah, you're writing
right.
every day. Yeah.
So that's where I'm able to. That's essentially my journal. But somebody might say, Marcus, I don't see you on Facebook. I know that's intentional. Marcus, I don't see you on Instagram. I know that's intentional. I don't see you on Twitter. I know that's intentional because I want to be the best at LinkedIn, and that allows me to put my focus there. Now, somebody might be listening to this and say, well, I can be great at a bunch. Yeah, good luck. Good luck at that. You're not. You're not. It goes back to the classic Jim Collins hedgehog concept. What can you be the best in the world at? What's the one thing that you can be the best in the world at? Because you're not going to be great on multiple social media platforms. Don't fool yourself. Now, one of these days when you've got 20 members of your social media team because you're a $1 billion company, good for you. Rock and roll. Be the best in the world at 10 different platforms for all I care. But let's not be naive and think we're going to be great. And I'm just not interested in being average on 3 or 4 things. We're sub-average or suboptimal on 3 or 4 or 5 platforms. I want to be really, really good on just one. And one person can do that if they have the right amount of focus.
I like that. And you're not a startup. So you've been doing this for a while. It's not like, okay, you start out with LinkedIn and then you branch off. There may not be a need. And I'm guilty of that as well. I didn't, maybe a year ago, I would have disagreed and said, no, you need to be on every platform. And what someone told me was, you're creating LinkedIn content and then sharing it on Instagram. That's a different audience. They want to see a different thing.
It's a very different audience. And it doesn't feel very sincere either.
Right.
I just started a charter fishing company, offshore fishing company in North Carolina. And, my whole focus is going to be YouTube at first. That's how I'm going to grow my audience. Right. And yeah, I'll have a Facebook page for the company and I'll put those YouTube videos on there. But my whole focus really is going to be on YouTube. That's where I'm going to put all my ducks. I'm going to replicate my success there, and I'm following the principles of They Ask You Answer those through YouTube. So I don't have a blog for my charter fishing company right now. Right. I've got a YouTube channel that's addressing the questions. And of course, you'll appreciate this, Giuseppe. One of the first videos I did was, how much does an offshore charter fishing trip cost? Right. And I was one of the first people in the entire industry that did that. Right. Because people want to know. And I can explain why it costs what it costs. But I don't have to give exact pricing, but I can at least give you ranges and help you get a sense for what you're going to spend if you go offshore fishing.
That's interesting. And do you get, just out of curiosity, do you get feedback from others in the area? Why are you doing this? Why are you giving?
Of course, all the time.
Okay.
So that's what happens to thought leaders. Right. They always get questioned. Yep. And I'm pleased when I am annoying my competitors and they're saying things like, why are you talking about that? As a manufacturer of fiberglass swimming pools, I produced a series of 8 videos that were 10 minutes long, roughly each. And it was how we make our pools. And it really annoyed our competitors because they're like, man, why are you showing the manufacturing process? Kind of like your secret sauce. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? There's no secret sauce here. Everybody knows this is Thousand Island dressing. Right. What makes it feel secret is when you're willing to show it, that's when you set yourself apart from the rest. Right. And I think a lot of companies, act like they have a secret sauce when, again, everybody knows it's Thousand Island dressing. Smart company says, okay, this is how we do what we do. Look, you're not Coca-Cola, you're not KFC. Let's move past that. And then we move past that and we start to show the world, it induces way more trust in the process.
No, that's beautifully said. So it's a combination. You got to build that trust and you have to be found. So these are 2 things that I guess we're always constantly juggling. And that's where the SEO, because great content, no one's seeing it. That's always going to be an issue. So I like that. And that's probably a whole nother topic. If, with your permission, you just posted, I think it was a few days ago, it was something about how you create content on a daily basis, as far as writing for yourself. Either I could read it, or if you wanted to go over that was an aha moment for ideas for not just what are my customers or my clients' questions, but how to create content without hitting that roadblock. Do you want me to read it, or did you want to? You
go ahead. I don't even remember exactly what I said at this point. Right?
I got it saved over here.
And you can tell me what your impressions were, because it's because I'm not nearly as thoughtful as some would think when it comes to the way I plan these things.
Well, okay. So I'm absorbing. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the book, and I need to pick up the video sale. I have not read that yet. Follow you on LinkedIn. So this was kind of an aha, because sometimes I have all these ideas and then I get writer's block the very next day. And what the heck am I going to write for today? So I'm going to read it. So this is LinkedIn. I think it was a few days ago. Let's see. Here it is. All right. What's by far the biggest key to posting consistent content on LinkedIn, especially when you're just getting started? Here's what I truly believe. Post for yourself, which was that was the aha moment. Seriously, that's it. Sound counterintuitive? Here's why. If you post for others, you will always at some point burn out. Your mood will constantly be affected by metrics that ultimately aren't built to last. Likes, shares, comments. I write on this platform each and every day. For me, it's an exercise for my brain. In many ways, LinkedIn is my thoughts journal. This is why, regardless of the amount of engagement or vanity metrics that come my way, I'm going to keep going. Do you know what's the paradox of this whole thing? The moment we release all the outside motives and metrics is oftentimes the moments we begin to create our best work. At least such has been my experience. Agree or disagree? And I like that. You're really putting your thoughts out there. Going back to the pool company, maybe it's not just about pools every day. Maybe it's something over and beyond that. But I think kind of documenting that, bringing some value, that's what makes people look forward, I believe, to that next post. It keeps the ideas flowing, right?
If you literally write or produce content for the like, it feels very empty at some point. And as a good human being, eventually you feel almost lost.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the influencer that takes all the fake photos on Instagram all day eventually feels that they're trying to hold water in their hand.
Right.
It's just nothing there. It's not real.
Right.
And so what the interesting thing about this, Giuseppe, is I can literally produce something on LinkedIn, manipulate the system, and say, I know this will get hundreds of likes.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can say what I really am thinking about the world of business, sales or marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I know certain things are not going to get high engagement. And that's when I say, I don't care.
Right.
Because I need to say this for me. And because I'm working out, I'm always writing my next book. I just happen to write it on places like LinkedIn. I'm always writing my next talk. I'm just writing it, in my case, on LinkedIn. And I'm not allowing, because what's funny is that those flippant viral posts, they don't make great keynotes. Mm-hmm. They don't make great books. They don't really change the world. They just catch fire for a second and suddenly they're gone tomorrow and you're feeling deflated because your next one tanked and you wonder why. So when you release yourself from that and it's an exercise in thought, now it's very, very healthy in my opinion.
I like that. Having an opinion, a stance on something, you can't just look at the likes, because I've heard of people reading all my posts and never commenting or liking. So sometimes it is hard to track, and it gets frustrating. Like, this isn't working. People are not. But going back to the beginning of the show, the buyer's journey. Maybe they're at that first 5 or 10%. Maybe they're just absorbing right now. They're looking at, okay, he has some great stuff to say. Let's see what he has to say tomorrow. Let's wait for the next podcast or video. So,
what's great too, if you're a classic business and you're following They Ask You Answer, like we've talked about, addressing those major subjects that everybody's researching, and you make that your social media like focus, you're going to do great.
Right.
You're going to resonate, but it won't be fake and it won't be vanity metrics. And you'll be talking to your customer. You know how many people I see go big on social media and are flat freaking broke and can't pay their mortgage? It's crazy.
Right.
And they, like, the perception is, wow, they're getting a lot of followers. they can't monetize squat. They can't sell squat, because at some point you actually have to show what your value proposition is to the marketplace. And I would much rather produce a video that got watched by 100 people and it led to 3 sales than a video that got watched by 1 million people and it literally didn't lead to a single sale.
Right.
But most people don't think that way. I mean, they might say, well, I'd rather the sales, but what are they? Their actions show otherwise. Their actions say, I'm going for the big swing. I'm going for the viral. But then again, afterwards, it's always deflating.
Right. I like that. What didn't we cover today? We covered quite a bit, and we could definitely spend a lot of time on specific areas. But what other advice, what other tips would you give to anyone listening in?
Well, I mean, especially just from the franchise standpoint, look, when it comes to marketing, there's one framework that's built to last. It's what we've been talking about. It's this they ask you answer. Because if I said to you, is trust going to be fundamental to your franchise's success in 10 years, 20 years? What would you say? You'd say yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If I said to you, is Facebook, is LinkedIn, is any of these platforms? The answer is probably not. And that's because platforms come and go.
Right.
They're temporary. So if you really build your business, your marketing, your sales strategy, your messaging, your brand around principles, well, then it doesn't matter what comes. You'll just be able to adjust accordingly and continue to do what you've always done.
Right. And
you're going to be ready for whatever's next.
I like that. Who someone wants additional information, where do they start? Who should contact you, and where should they contact you?
Well, you can always email me. Marcus at marcussheridan.com is a simple one. Website, marcussheridan.com. ImpactPlus.com is my agency's website, but you'll find it. Best place to find me, though, is LinkedIn. It's where I put my best stuff. And again, you can email me, Marcus at marcussheridan.com.
And if they're just starting out, do you recommend they pick up the book first?
100%. 100%. Right. And that's funny. Sometimes people reach out to me and say, hey, Marcus, what do you think I should do? I'm like, first thing you need to do is read the book. Right. Not because I want you to buy it, because I make like 10 cents, right? I want you to, you'll be flooded with ideas and you'll have a plan. Now come back to me with your plan once you've read the book, and I'll tell you if your plan's on track. Right.
Makes sense, right? You need to be prepared for the questions, not just going cold. So I like that. Now this was awesome. As I mentioned, I'm a huge fan, and we'll plug the book again. I've been talking about it. Organization I'm with, 82 strong. We're all independent, and we started talking about this at our last conference in January, and people were just blown away at how simple it was, how quickly they went through the book, and how quickly they've all implemented it. So,
that's great.
I see a lot of posts, or we have some similar, look and feel to a lot of them, which is great because it's getting the word out there. So again, I wanted to thank you for all your work and that inspiration. We definitely look forward to your posts every day on LinkedIn specifically. So follow Marcus there. Again, thank you very much for coming on the show, and looking forward to chatting again very soon, man.
My pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in. Whenever you're ready, here are 3 ways Giuseppe can help. 1. If you've ever considered owning a business of any kind, you owe it to yourself to get a copy of Giuseppe's book, Franchise Freedom. Download your free copy at ggthefranchiseguide.com/book. 2. Want to understand how successful executives make the transition from corporate to owning their own franchise? Join Giuseppe's next online presentation, Franchise Freedom: How to Escape the Corporate World and Have Financial and Time Freedom by Owning a Franchise, by going to ggthefranchiseguide.com/video. 3. Want to work with Giuseppe one-on-one to identify the right franchise opportunity for you, to navigate the process, and get plugged into experienced franchising advisors? Send him an email to gg@ggthefranchiseguide.com with one-on-one in the subject, and he'll send you all the details.